Just over 30 years since the girl was found on the 24th of January 1993, Stacey went missing from her home in Ladybank, Bracknell, and was reported missing just after 7 p.m. Her body was sadly found later the same day in Southhill Park's Woodland area. The night that Stacey went missing, she had previously had an argument with her mother and gotten herself sent to bed early. But when Gillian saw that Stacey ran away, she wasn't worried, as Stacey had done this twice previously and was threatening to do it again. There has never been enough sufficient evidence to charge anyone with her murder, said by Thames Valley Police. Peter Byrne, head of Thames Valley Police Major Crime Investigation Team, has stated that he believes there are people who have information or suspicions about Stacey's murder, but for whatever reason they have yet to inform the police. Initially, police thought her necklaces had gone tangled in the branches in the woods and caused her to stop breathing, but after her post-mortem, the results revealed marks on her body that were consistent with being strangled. A Home Office pathologist concluded that she was most likely killed elsewhere, as her shoes were clean when her body was found on a tree despite the ground being muddy.
I was 9 years old when I first heard about Stacey Querpel. I was obviously quite young, so it wasn't a massive impact at the time. Obviously all the papers, Bracknell News I think, or Bracknell Times, they had said that it was an accident, so we were all under the assumption it was an accident for some time. I remember being told about it, but I went to school in Bulbrook, and obviously she was in school near Great Hollands, near Birch Hill. So I didn't know anyone that knew her. It was just an unfortunate story that we heard about, and it was mainly sort of whispers. I would say, however, because I went to dance class almost every single day, and you'd have the parents that meet up. And the funny thing was, when it came out that it was a murder, that's when you started to get the conversation. You'd hear about the parents sort of gossiping about it and the rumour mill going around. But as I say, I was 9 years old, so it didn't really hit. I remember feeling sad about it. But then as a 9-year-old, just got on with my life. Unfortunately, that's what happened.
Hi, my name's Stacey. I used to live in the Birch Hill area and lived next door to the park where Stacey was found. I also used to live in her house after her family moved out. I heard about the case on the local news. It was all in the Bracknell newspapers as well. It was also very much talked about in the Birch Hill area. Lots of people knew Stacey from playing outside, playing in the park. She was quite a little regular face around the area. And the group of people I used to live with made a song dedicated to her. The case didn't affect me personally because I wasn't close to the little girl, but she lived in our local area. We used to see her out playing, and it made us quite wary of walking through Southhill Park and the surrounding areas. There was a lot of talk and speculation around the case. A lot of people believed it to have not been an accident and it to be something to do with the parents involved. When I lived at the house, there was lots of unsavoury characters hanging around, and it wasn't a very comfortable place to be. There was also neighbours that said they heard lots of raised voices and didn't really take any notice, but think they should have. After Stacey's family moved out of the flat, a friend and I moved into flat share. It was quite not an eerie experience, but quite weird. There was lots of strange people that used to hang around. Lots of strangers outside on the stairways, lots of gossip about what had happened, and the neighbours used to say that they could hear noises coming from next door.
So I heard about the case, we lived literally next door to where it happened. So at the time I was living in Bracknell. I still do live in Bracknell. And we were, I lived with my brother. We played in a band. We all lived in a house together. And we lived in Jevington, which is a street that is actually right at the back of Southhill Park. If you went out the back of Southhill Park and kept walking across the field to the woodland, then over the wall, there's a couple of local roads. One of them is Jevington. And that road, that woodland, was actually where she was found. And so the little girl was found, I think it was a Sunday, if I remember right. She was found on a Sunday, and there was all sorts of activity. And before, in those years, that was before internet, and you didn't hear about it on the news so much, and we didn't really watch the news. We were more into music and all that. We just heard it through the grapevine and police activity and what have you.
The Bracknell News stated the coroner who recorded her death as an unlawful killing said at the time that he feared without enough fresh evidence that her killer may never be found. Stacey's mother, Gillian Querpel, was arrested on suspicions of Stacey's murder twice, but she was later released after not having enough evidence toward her. The evidence that she was testified for was due to this article at 7:30 p.m. Gillian reported to her lodger and some friends who were staying with her at the time that her children were in bed. She was going to run a bath. About half an hour later, at around 8 p.m, she rushed to the lodger to inform him that Stacey was not in her bed. The lodger reported that Gillian had changed her clothes after having a bath and that her shoes that she was wearing before she got into the bath were muddy. These are the shoes she put back on to go and search for her daughter. With this evidence and her confessing after being arrested the first time that she was abusive to Stacey and was told that her mother held her around the neck until she turned blue and would continuously stab Stacey.
If you do know anything about this case, it's been a long time now, but it still hasn't been proven what's happened. She was supposed to have choked on a necklace, but there were marks found around her neck. Her mother had the fresh soil on her boots. It's always been talked about, but it's always been covered up. So if anybody knows anything, we urge you to go to the police.
A lot of the residents, we were all questioned. We were questioned quite heavily because I actually walked across there probably within a few hours of when she was found. It's a long time, but I remember talking to the police about it and them saying the timings were that I had probably walked by within about an hour or two of when she had been there. So that was pretty sad, really, that I'd never seen anything, didn't see anything at all.
At the time, it was considered an accident, and then it was considered a murder by the police shortly after. I can't remember actually the time of the series of events when it went from accident to murder, but I don't think it was that long when they decided. It was definitely based on the second post-mortem.
Stacey lived with her mum, Gillian Querpel, her stepdad, her 2-year-old sister who wishes to remain unnamed, and a lodger who is also unnamed. They also appeared to have friends over at the time of the disappearance. Stacey's biological father, Steve Norton, did an interview with the ITV in January 2023 for the 30th anniversary of his daughter's death, to urge people with any information to come forward to the police now the appeal for information has been renewed. Stacey's father did not live with her, but it seemed through this interview that they had a good relationship as he speaks about the memories with his daughter and being very involved through the day she was reported missing and later found dead. Her dad is destroyed by this and still to this day is looking for answers.
You never forget the day. My brother-in-law approached me and said that the police are here. I got told that she was missing. I said, well, we'll go look for her. I want to help look. And then they said I couldn't. And that's when they told me that she'd passed. Stacey was a lovely, normal, happy little girl. Full of fun, beautiful smiles. She loved her friends. She loved animals. She was just a lovely, normal little kid. Someone somewhere does know. I've always believed it. Whether they're afraid, whether it's loyalty, whether it just takes a phone call. Stay anonymous. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to just give the police that vital piece that they need. And that's what I want.
The following are taken from Cold Case UK on Reddit, where local people were discussing the case and their theories of what they had heard around the time. One person said, "Evidence and timeline does seem to point to the mother, doesn't it? Who has a bath and then puts muddy shoes on in the evening? I think the bath was to provide cover for her moving the body, and the poor girl was lying dead in her bed since the argument. Maybe Gillian realised she was missing and threw whatever on to search for her, but the whole case is weird. I think more than one person was involved, and that could include the mother. I think they are all responsible for her death with that information. The girl had no change. I did think it was a bit of a drug drink den with the amount of people in the flat." The following is a quote from a YouTube video detailing the case. The quote is from the individual that performed Stacey's post-mortem. "What parent at some time has not been driven to distraction with children playing up? There can't be a mother in the country who at some stage has not screamed at her child. As a single parent, life can't be easy. Miss Querpel is quite adamant in her memory of what happened, and that to say she deliberately went out and killed her daughter is beyond belief."
The theories behind it were the mum did it. I think the general consensus in the local area was that the mum had done something to her daughter. It was pretty obvious that that happened. Obviously, then when you look into the case, look into it in depth and the timeline of events, it's more pushing towards her mum. And actually, if you look at the information that the police found, or the police said they found, the fact that they interviewed her and they did actually release her, and then they could make statements about the case, but because CPS had shut them down from making a prosecution, they'd said that there wasn't enough evidence against the person that they suspected, which obviously was the mum. There wasn't enough evidence to be able to get a prosecution, so they weren't able to actually take her to court for the murder of her daughter. When I look at the facts that support the theories of the mum, I think that's the most important thing. So she had a bunch of people around the flat. They said they were drinking tea, but it transpired they were smoking weed all night. So there's no way that their series of events time-wise could be actually trusted. However, the one thing they did say was that she went to run a bath. She went off out of the living room area that they were in. It was like a kitchen diner. She went out down the hallway to the bathroom. They don't know how long she was gone for. That's another problem of mine, that they can't sort of verify or say how long she was out of the room for. And then when she did come back into the room to actually alert them that Stacey was missing, she hadn't had a bath, but she had changed her clothes and her shoes were muddy. So the theory goes that she'd obviously done something to Stacey and then dumped her body in a nearby woodlands at Southall Park, and then she came back home and sort of sounded the alarm. I completely am on board with that theory. I think there's a couple of things that actually would support that she'd already done something to Stacey. So what I think that she could have done, and it's just my personal opinion, I could be completely wrong, but I believe that, Stacey came home, they had an altercation, which she had said, by the way, the mum had said that her and Stacey had a falling out, which was why Stacey was in bed at 5:30, so she'd gone to bed early. But also so was the little sister, so both kids were in bed. I think she had a falling out with Stacey. She had strangled her. She might not have meant to go that far, but she did. I think she panicked because she had people coming over, didn't know what to do, told them that Stacey was in bed because they'd had a falling out. And she went along with the evening until she decided somehow she got it into her head to get rid of the body. And so I believe she went Stacey was already dead at that point. I believe she went and got her. I believe that she dumped her body in the woods then, and then the series of events goes that she sounded the alarm.
If she did walk off, because there was a theory that she'd walked off, run away, and then it had happened while she was over there, and you do think, well, if that is true, which is, I don't think it was, and then maybe if I'd walked by at the right moment, I could have seen a little girl walking along on her, you need to get home sort of thing, if that had been what had happened. But I suspect not, which I suspect is why no one saw anything. It's very suspicious. A little girl doesn't just run away, vanish over some woodland locally and then be wound up dead. It just, the chances of her running away and running into a murderer are just like, ridiculously small. The obvious thing is that someone killed her that knew her.
Michael Sparks, his brother Richard, and two friends Peter and Martin created a band together called 415, with Michael playing keyboard and synthesizer, Peter playing guitar, Martin playing bass together, and Richard as the lead singer and the songwriter. In their band, they would write songs about topics they would discuss together as a four. Their song Talking Tree is dedicated to Stacey Querpel. Michael is here now to discuss this meaning behind these heartbreaking lyrics.
We called ourselves 415, and we played as a group for years. I mean, the band is still going without me in it. I played keyboards and did a lot of the recording in the studio with them. Her brother was a lead singer and used to write most of the songs and lyrics. A lot of the songs used to come from things that we talked about together in this case. So the song that was written was called Talking Tree, and if you actually listen to the lyrics, it's basically talking about it's sort of like how if the walls had ears, if trees could talk, because she was found obviously in woodland. So it's kind of sort of suggesting that, to me anyway. I mean, Richard wrote the lyric there, so you got to be careful, because obviously lyrics are very personal, but for me it meant what we could know if the trees had eyes. So some of the lyric, as I said, I need to remember them all. The main lyric is the actual "we found her by a talking tree," and there's a line which saying "we wanted to believe," but I don't think anyone really did believe that it was an accident, because that's what they were saying originally. It was an accident. And that's it. It's quite a simple song, really. It's not particularly wordy. But yeah, the main thing is saying, we found her beneath a talking tree. And really talks about wanting to believe, They
buried her child beneath the talking tree, a pathway to the sky. They laid to rest her fears and preserved her dignity. Oh, how she cried. The child was not mine. How I wanted to believe it. How I wanted to make you try. How I wanted to believe it to your lover's eye.
It is a real disappointment that this case will most likely remain unsolved. However, if you have any information about this case and want to report it to help Stacey's family get closure on their daughter, please email helpstacey@thamesvalleypolice.co.uk, call 101 or visit a police station. I'm Arlo Scurr. Thank you for watching.